Right, the very first step in starting our project is we're going to take some wax and we are going to rub it all over the back of the wood panel. Now the reason we do this is because when it comes to the end of our project and we want to remove the resin drips that have fallen while curing, this is going to help them release from the wood a lot easier, so it's just going to make that job quite a bit simpler. So now we're ready to base coat the front of the panel. So I've got some painter's pyramids here. I'm going to put my panel on there. I'm just going to use some primer, and I have a little paint tray here and a foam roller. And I like to put it on with a foam roller. If you prefer, you could always use a brush. I just prefer the texture from the roller rather than brush strokes. I'm going to put some in my paint tray, and I'm actually going to do 2 coats of it. I'm just going to film 1 coat, and then the other coat, once the first coat is dry, I'm going to add a second coat because I want to make sure that my panel is completely covered. So first thing I'm going to do is do all the edges. If you prefer to do the front or the top first and then do the edges, you can absolutely do that. It's very helpful to have it on those painter pyramids, especially while doing this. You definitely need it on something while you're doing the resin, but I just find by having them on here while I'm painting, I can easily do the sides without having to lift it up. Now let's do the front. And I try to take as much of the excess of the paint off so that I'm not slopping it around and having big blobs in areas. And you can see I like to hold down my panel so that so it doesn't really move on those painter's pyramids. And then last, the center here. So I'm going to let that completely dry, and then I will add my second layer. All right, our first coat is completely dry, so let's add a second coat here. And if by chance after adding a second coat you find that something hasn't been covered quite as well, you can always add a third coat. But for what I am looking for, I think 2 coats is going to be enough here. And then because this is the last coat, I'm just going to go over the entire thing so I have a smooth surface without any roller lines. So now I'm going to let that completely dry before we go on to our next step.